All right, welcome. I'm Raymond Modulin, and welcome to Real University's continuing education course called Introduction into Commercial Brokerage. This is just an intro course. It's to kind of get you started in the commercial brokerage industry. I think everybody thinks about it at one point. So this is kind of some basic information about brokerage and how to get started and the different types of commercial properties. So that's going to be it's not a real in-depth. I don't want to get guilty of trying to give you too much information all at one time in an introduction course. Commercial is often seen as the big leagues in the real estate brokerage. I basically contend that's not true. It's actually an entirely different ball game with similar rules. So a lot of people think that you're going to start in residential and graduate to commercial. It's not really true. I always use the softball baseball analogy. Very similar game. You know, the basic rules are the same. Score the most runs, you get 3 outs, yada, yada, yada. But there's enough little differences in the two that if you try and use one set of rules in the other game, you're probably not going to fare too well. Well, that's exactly what's going to happen here. So we're going to talk about some of the similarities and the differences between the two. You know, what's similar about them, what's different about them, things you need to keep an eye on. We're going to talk about how you deal with a client and when to refer a client. When should you actually take the listing or the buyer? Because believe it or not, one of the hardest things to do is to lay off of a pitch. One of the hardest things to do is lay off a deal. I know we all want to make money and we all have grandiose ideas of, oh, I can collect this commission and it's going to be $20,000 or $40,000, so I'm going to do the deal. And you end up doing your client a disservice. So sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, I need to refer this to another more experienced person, and then try and work a deal with that person about, hey, let me shadow you. So sometimes we're going to talk about when you take a client, when you shouldn't. We're going to talk about how you make sure you can get paid at closing in commercial real estate transaction. This is probably one of the major different rules that you're going to see between the baseball and the softball. You know, we always are used to this thing called the BAC down in the residential. You know what? Let me make a statement here. First of all, I am not talking about the commercial that goes in my board. I know that there is a commercial tab that we can put some stuff in there. I'm talking a little bit more of investment grade and bigger commercial, that 500,000 to 5 million, okay? Because this is getting ready to what I was telling you. One of the big things about getting paid in the residential world is we get the BAC down there, and we know I'm getting 3% of whatever price I negotiate, all right? In the true commercial world, and I mean not in the BAC or not in any of the board listings, you're going to have to ask for your commission. Am I getting paid by you? If so, how much are you paying me? Very entirely possible that they may go, no, yeah, we're not co-oping anything out. So you may have to get it from your own client. And if you think you're just automatically assuming you're going to get paid and you don't, you go to closing and all of a sudden there's no check there for you and you're going to go, oh crap, I used the baseball rule instead of the softball rule and I got burned. I literally know an agent that did this with a buyer that bought a bank from a bank. They sold one of their old branches and they bought it. They did not co-op any money, and when she got to closing, she didn't get paid, and they said, hey, we never really told you we were paying you. So that's a big issue. We're going to talk about the fundamentals of the four major types of commercial real estate. There's office, retail, industrial, and multifamily. Those are the big four, and then, of course, there's subcategories in each one of those, and we'll talk about when we get to those four major categories that they can be broken down. Like, for instance, you've got retail, you've got single tenant, you've got multi-tenant, you've got anchored, you've got what we call mom and pop, which is traditionally smaller units with no major chain in it. So those are the four major types of commercial real estate that we're going to be dealing with and all the subgroups. We're going to talk a little bit about commercial financing, and we're going to talk about your role as the commercial broker and what your responsibilities are going to be. All right? So that's basically what this course is going to cover and how we get into it. Now, 72% of all the commercial buildings that are sold are less than 10,000 square feet in size. All right? So most of everything that is sold out there, almost 3/4, matter of fact, if you add another 8% to that, so you got 80%, are less than 17,000 square feet. And those statistics come straight from the Commercial Board of Realtors. So basically what I'm telling you is 8 out of 10 deals are 17,000 square foot and less. And that's not really a big property if you think about it. So the big stuff, the other 20%, it's probably not going to be you or me anyway. They're usually going to be institutional sales or very high-end commercial where they're going to be looking for the CCIM kind of designation, which we're actually going to touch on. The commercial sales span the spectrum. Typically, what we're going to be talking about is 500,000 to maybe 5 million. All of those comprise about 80% of all the commercial deals done. All right? And unfortunately, the big press gets covered by the other 20%. Hey, we sold the AUL building, it's going to make the newspaper. In the meantime, you sold 17, little small industrial properties, and you're going to get passed by in the newspaper because of that. So on a daily basis, strip centers, small warehouses, small offices, little supermarkets, things like that are probably what we're going to be dealing with, at least in the beginning. Now, if you are going to get serious into commercial and get some of the designations we're going to talk about, then potentially you can move up. Now, as far as the four sectors go, traditionally in the industrial sector posted the strongest sales in 2014. They account for the warehouse and the distribution centers, which are your big, like there's one over here, the Phoenix Group, over here on the other side of 65. They account for the lion's share. So followed by the manufacturing, and those are all subgroups of industrial: warehouse, flex, R&D, distribution, light manufacturing. Those are all right now the hot market. Matter of fact, I had a client looking for a place where he could pull a semi in because they were stripping semis and repainting them, and all he wanted was one bay, and we really couldn't find it because it was such demand. All of the distribution center spots were all full. Coming in a close second is retail properties right now. With the increase in the employment and the confidence in the market in general, retail tenants are expanding and development is back increasing. Multifamily is probably tied right in there. Matter of fact, the renter-occupied housing rose 3.2% in 2014, and that's the U.S. Census data. Right now, just for you guys that are in the multifamily, 7.3% is the U.S. average vacancy rate in a multifamily property. Now, I'm talking, not one or two homes. I'm talking, 40, 50, 600 units. 7.3% is the average vacancy rate. And then obviously, lastly, right now is the office space. Office space is very soft, and I think that's due to, you see a decline in the upper level management, mainly because it can now be outsourced to someone else, or management's becoming more streamlined and lean. So what used to take 20 or 30 people, they're now doing in 10. So the office space, although it is actually up compared to 2013 and the first part of 2014. So basically, if you listen to all three of those, you realized that all of those are actually up.